Thank you. Moving on to the financial side of this process. In the long run, carbon price should allow the governments to step back, but we are not there yet. A lot of European energy firms make the assumption that when the next phase of the emissions trading scheme starts in 2013, price of a ton of CO2 will be between 20 to 30 euros, which will mean sizable liabilities for emissions. That is the assumption, and carbon price is nowhere near that range at the moment. There is a first mover disadvantage on CCS as well, because it is basically impossible to get commercial funding from the banking sector. The banks would be waiting for the governments to move in first and then see the results and then make their own assessments. So the whole financial aspect is very tricky, but to start with the cost side, how much do we know about the costs associated with CCS?
Well, this is always the $10,000 question, if you like to put it that way. But I think if you ask the financial community, as you relate to in your introductory, I think that the most robust reference they use is the IPCC study from 2005. So that isn't a very comprehensive data set, and I think it goes back to what you said, the chicken and the egg, that we simply don't have the physical data from the first plant. That is still to be addressed. So then there need to be a certain inclination of risk-taking in this business. And that again calls for a very strong government to industry partnership to mitigate that risk over a broader spread of players. And I think that is where we need to develop this architecture now. Platforms where you have a much stronger joint approach to projects. So I think examples you see in the EU and in other regions are good beginnings of this part, but this is where you need to progress in a much more persistent way.
When it comes to the various funding schemes, I mean, the EU has actually done some interesting financial engineering, which for those of us who have followed how the EU operates, this is unprecedented, to come up with the 300 million allowances to fund CCS and innovative renewables, to have funds being spent as part of the recovery package on the basis of unused funds, which normally would go back to national budgets, unused funds in agriculture. I mean, for that to be in place is quite unprecedented, knowing the complexity of the EU system. Obviously, the natural way would be if there was such a thing as a proper EU budget, to spend money from the EU budget, and this discussion will come back when the next financial perspective is on the table, 2013, 2020. There will be a discussion about a financial instrument to fund CCS. Then there is the national funding. United Kingdom is examining, from what I understand, a levy that would basically compensate energy firms for the difference between the carbon price that is required to make CCS viable and the carbon price at the given time. So how do we understand, how should we understand the economics of all that, and who is going to have a proper advantage in spending more on CCS nationally?
Well, I think that this is in a way into the core of the economics of CCS today. You're correct on UK, and I think it's right to also mention the Norwegian experience here with the CO2 tax. But what we see is that that levy has to be higher to compensate for the lower ETS incentive. And with the stimulus instruments from the stimulus packages, of course, these are very interesting developments. There is money in the financial market, but I think it's fair to say that the capital market don't play in these type of projects. I think that the scale of this challenge is not prohibitive. You see, for instance, in the United States, I just read that for NASA to put a new mission on the moon in 2020 would take $3 billion each year, and this is money that is available if the purpose is strong enough. And in the financial market, like in the bond market, which is what we hear from the financial institutions, is where you probably would have to fund these type of large-scale activities. And this is the size of this market is sufficient for the investment requirements that IEA has indicated is needed. But in order to attract these funds, you need some bridging incentives. So I think that the mechanisms is there, but you just need to introduce the right incentives. So that will be probably interesting 1 or 2 years ahead to see how this develop. But whereas the financial crisis has given a dip on investments in low-carbon technologies, there's also interesting to see how the green economy develops on the hands of the governments designing new instruments to facilitate the transition towards a low-carbon economy.